Good evening, persons of quality, and welcome to English 2. Well, actually, specifically Honors English 2 this 2022 fall school year. So, I am Mr. Manuel. I am sitting in my humble abode in southeast lower Michigan, putting this presentation together for you on the first day of classroom instruction. Doing this because I am currently on my way across the state to move our son into college, into his dorms, so that he can go there and everything can be wonderful. Now, I designed these presentations to hold your attention. So there's a lot of information, very specifically. There is little nuances that certainly help you out as you listen and pay attention. So not only is this just designed to be information, it's also going to be designed to make sure you attend. So take some time. You're going to watch this during class. So have your notebook open, have your pen ready so that you can take notes. Because I'm going to instruct you to watch this on your own personal device with your earbuds, this is going to give you the opportunity, if you need to back this up, to watch it over again in case you've missed something. So make sure you're ready to go as you start your class today. Your prefect is there just to make sure that you stay on track. And again, I'm probably going to assess you on this on Friday to make sure that you're on track. All right, so here we go. So, good morning again. As I was sitting down to produce this video for you for Thursday, I realized that there were some segments in here that I wanted to make sure I covered before I went too far. So before I get to actually covering the summer reading, in just brief, in preparation for Monday's summer reading test, if you go to the Mudge page, which you now have access to, and you pull up the syllabus, I want to make sure that you read through those documents. So probably 8-9 years ago, we had to come up with the extraordinarily large and detailed syllabus that you're going to see in front of you when you download it. What I want you to specifically look at is the course guidelines and policies. So first of all, no late homework. So has to be in on time. Usually the deadlines are going to be midnight if it's submitted digitally. If not, you have to hand it to me in class. I'm going to go to a lot of paper this year, but I love the digital environment. I also want you to take some time to review the writing guidelines. These are the guidelines that are built upon what you did in your freshman year. And the grading rubric, which I'll introduce to you probably in the second week, is based completely on those writing guidelines and how that works. And as you do some writing on your summer reading, you're going to have the opportunity to sit and look at those particulars. So I was going to do some screenshots initially of this and record over it, but given the circumstances, I want you to review the syllabus. I want you to review the writing guidelines and the other documents that you're going to see posted in topics. Take some time to review what's there. I do a lot of video teaching, so there's going to be a lot of that material in there as well. You don't have to go through and look at anything after the summer reading topic right now, but again, might be something worth your while. So make sure you dedicate a little bit of time to that while you're sitting in my class right now. Again, Friday, there's probably going to be a little bit of an assessment to see if you did the work. For this next segment, I'm going to give you 3 quotes, and I want you to look at each one. You're probably going to need to pause your video, write them down, do a little bit of analysis. So I'm not going to provide you with the analysis in this presentation, but there's 3 quotes for Catcher in the Rye that I want you to be familiar with. I also give you the page number in my version of the book where that quote comes from. So perhaps that's going to be something of value for you to do. So if you went through those three quotations and wrote them down and the page numbers as they appeared on the PowerPoint slides, you should have a good starting point for discussion. Now, what is the major theme, at least what the research says about major theme in Catcher in the Rye? It's about the loss of innocence. It's about how Holden Caulfield is facing the transition to being an adult and struggling with the idea that he has to make this transition. So I think that's a huge idea. So the loss of innocence, the loss of childhood, that might also connect to the idea of why he's trying to save Phoebe from becoming an adult, and why, even though he acts like an adult, tries to pretend like he's an adult, he falls apart when pressured on those types of decisions. Take, for example, when Stradlater challenges his or Holden's vision of the ex-girlfriend, or the whole idea about Sonny the prostitute, and how Holden defines this as he's an adult and this is this tremendous moment of awesomeness, and he becomes afraid. And I think that is the crux, the center of what we're talking about here with Holden's struggle with adulthood. So I think that loss of innocence is huge. You tie into that the pain of growing up and becoming an adult. This is why Holden ends up where he does at the end of the book. And I think that's important. So tracking his collapse to that final chapter, I think, is really important. Looking at where he's going to go after the consequences of the final chapter are significant as well. Notice I'm being vague too about what that is in case you haven't read to the end of the book yet. So we talk about the painfulness of growing up. We talk about how Holden sees things only superficially, and he's unable to then go through and say, hey, these are the ideas that are really important. This is what it means to be mature. It's not this exterior appearance. It's instead who people are. That's a maturity issue that Holden Caulfield struggles with. It might also kind of tie into why he doesn't want to go home and face his parents after getting kicked out of another school. Just some things to think about as you're going through your notes and reviewing this for Monday's test. You can talk about this idea of being a phony and how Holden sees anybody who is an adult and doesn't get to hold on to the innocence, that the Catcher in the Rye didn't catch before they jumped off the cliff. The idea of the old Shirley beans, the record that Holden buys for Phoebe and then breaks. Those things. Talks about how Holden can't quite address what it means to be a phony, what it means to be an adult. It's all blurred together in his mind, and as a result, he can't do anything. He's sort of frozen. Even called it sort of a paralysis that his character has. Now, as I'm sitting here, kind of thinking about all this, I think this makes Holden Caulfield a really interesting character. I personally dislike him immeasurably. There's something about him. He's a whiner. All of these things that ultimately just make me nuts. But again, certainly some things to think about as you go through the novel and examine what's going on with the characters. So you can certainly look at these ideas. As I'm looking at some of my notes, what are the lessons that Holden Caulfield learns? Focus on this to help in your analysis of the novel. When he gets to his final destination, when he's done hiding from his peers at Pensy, when he's done trying to hide from his parents, when he sort of responds to Phoebe calling him out as being a phony himself, what does he learn? Does he learn anything? This gives you a good opportunity to kind of think about what this means and what some of the ideas are. Think about the symbols. Think about Allie's baseball mitt. Think about the record, the Museum of Natural History. What do those things all say about Holden Caulfield? What about nostalgia? Nostalgia. Nostalgia is the need to capture, recapture, hold on to the past. Why is nostalgia a significant theme for Holden Caulfield? So, again, I'm throwing a lot at you in this first day of school's presentation, but it's certainly giving you some things to think about. If this is going too fast for you, go back and watch it again. And that's why I'm delivering it to you this way. So, like, for example, this segment is now just the 6-minute mark. So, small chunks, and this should help you out significantly as you go. Now, I'm bringing this video ultimately to an end. So, I've mixed video segments in with PowerPoint slides where you take notes and context. So when you walk in on Friday, be prepared to do a couple of different things. One, if asked for, be able to show me your notes. Two, if asked for, be able to prove that you watched this video. Three, if asked for, be able to take a quiz on your quotations on the information that I've gone over in this presentation. Now, I want to do a little thing here for you, so it's going to take me a quick second. I'm going to unplug the power to my computer. So, just to make sure that we keep this in real time, here's my office. There's the closet. I'm not too worried about that right now. But, take a look. This page, it's called Ripple Effect, and actually photography, and that's in the basement of the old. Over here, this example of another photograph. Here is the exterior of the train station. This is a photographer who takes pictures of significant buildings in Detroit. So I just found that to be extraordinarily interesting art as we go through. So I think that's certainly going to be of value to us. That's just, again, one of those little, are you paying attention? Did you make it all the way through the end of the presentation? Now, one more little thing, and I have to point it actually toward the ground. So I have two dogs. Both are pandemic dogs. One we got, I think, 7 days after the governor closed the schools because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the second dog we got probably about a year later, because why not? Why not have two big dogs? Now, I'm going to provide you bonus if you can tell me what breed of dog that is. I'll give you a hint. Part of it is Doodle. You gotta see if you can recognize the other type. And again, it's one of those little bonus things that you throw in there. Plus, I gave you an opportunity to look at art. I also gave you a look at some of the other things in my office. So that might be of significant value as we move through this. So with that, I'm going to end the presentation, and I will see you bright and early on Friday. Now, I ended the Catcher in the Rye presentation. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about expectations and passing. So when I give you a video presentation like this, my expectation is that you take notes, because my process is to always quiz you the next day to make sure that you've gone through this. In the past, we've used pieces like PlayPosit. I decided that this year I'm not going to do that. I'm instead going to create my own quizzes that will come the next day to make sure you have the information. So make sure you do that. It's critical with the summer reading test coming up on Monday that you complete the reading, that you take these Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend to review the text details for your novel so that you're in good shape. Now, your test is 100 questions. It's multiple choice. Some of them are tricky, so you need to make sure that you review the notes that I've given you in the guidance. Plus, you got to read the book. We write these tests to beat Spark Notes and Cliff Notes, and because I teach more than one honor sophomore class, I change the forms, so you have that information right at your fingertips. When you take a look at passing, pay careful attention to the friendship between Irene and Claire. Look at the racial ideas that also are pervasive in the novel. To my left on my clipboard, where I have all the files I put together, I have some significant files about the tensions in the novel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition you over to those slides so that we can continue to take notes on that material. So again, good morning, persons of quality. You're going to notice that some of what I'm doing here is to see how well you're paying attention to the video, as the circumstances are just a little bit different with the way I'm recording the video. So just a brief little segment on passing to make sure that we have a good idea of what's going on. The novel centers on the relationship between Claire and Irene. And really, I always look at the novel as these are two great friends who, because of circumstances, because of their interactions throughout their own lives, have developed very specific personality traits and understanding of the world. So I think that's going to be important. Whom they choose to marry, sort of the circumstances that they go through during their life are incredibly important. This is a novel that addresses the identity of African American women of mixed race and how that affects the development of their identity. Now, this is a reality that we look at in American literature. So we certainly want to pay attention to those, what I think are important ideas. So as I'm looking at my resources, I went to JSTOR, which is one of our big academic clearinghouses. If you don't know about it already, you will very soon. And I thought this was going to be relevant to the themes of struggle that Irene and Claire experience. So here we go. The complex predicament of persons living double lives, passing as white, deliberately or not, permanently or as a temporary convenience, intrigued a surprising number of major authors whose writings gave rise to the now familiar trope of the tragic mulatto and the unveiled pretender. It's about identity. It's about what happens when you can't be your original person and you have to conform to fit a social standard. Now, this is through the lens of race, but I think more significantly, it's an idea that we want to look at. A mulatto is someone of mixed birth, African American and white, and that's a major theme that develops in this novel. So I think that's going to be significant. So a lot of the other research that I'm looking at talks about a book published in 1853, another in 1894. Nella Larsen publishes her novel in 1929. So right in the cusp of all of these major changes. The next paragraph says, moreover, nonfiction accounts of passing have long fascinated the American public, who read of compelling situations in newspapers and magazines and in books like A Man Called White, 1948, by NAACP leader Walter F. White, The Sweeter the Juice, 1995, by Shirley Hayslip, and Life Along the Color Line by Gregory Williams, again, 1995. So these are published after I graduated from U of D. So we want to look at the struggles of these women in their specific lives. Somewhat controversial, but that's what literature does. It challenges our social norms, and we say, how do we deal with people that have a different experience than us, that exist differently? So I think, again, not a whole lot of content here, but significantly things to look at so that you can move forward with your understanding of what's going on. So this gives me a little bit of an opportunity to say, hey, let's look at how these ideas specifically work in the novel and what we can do as a result. Okay? So I'm going to end your presentation for good. Right now, this is an additional probably about 5 minutes that I'm putting on to the end here. So your job, again, is to make sure that you have your resources, you have them put together, you do your review, so when I walk in on Friday, we can cover all these materials and we can make sure that we are absolutely moving forward. Okay? There's a lot going on. You got a lot in this first 2 weeks when it comes to summer reading. So let's just make sure we're moving forward. Now, I'm going to go downstairs and fix my car. We've changed the alternator, sorry, not the alternator, the starter, trying to make it work last week, probably 4 or 5 days ago. Now we're going to try and do it again because it didn't work. So be well, make sure you view your content, you take notes, and you come in ready for a quiz tomorrow. So I promise that this is the last segment. I decided at roughly 2:19, the day before you watched this video, that I wanted to do the same thing with the quotes that I did with the Catcher in the Rye portion a little bit earlier. So here we go. So I need to switch over to where I have it. So here's the first quote, and you have this dedicated in your notes. So it reads as follows. It's funny about passing. We disapprove of it and at the same time condone it. It excites our contempt, and yet we rather admire it. We shy away from it with an odd kind of revulsion, but we protect it. Unquote. The second quote is, quote, the trouble with Claire was not only that she wanted to have her cake and eat it too, but that she wanted to nibble at the cakes of other folk as well, unquote. And your third quote, and yet she hadn't the air of a woman whose life had been touched by uncertainty or suffering. Pain, fear, and grief were things that left their mark on people. Even love, that exquisite, torturing emotion, left its subtle traces on the countenance. Now, you have the opportunity here to go back and review those if you need to write them down. What I would like you to have prepared on Friday is a short write-up of each of the 6 quotes I've given you in this presentation. 3 from Catcher in the Rye and 3 from Passing. So you've got those 3 in particular. As a bonus, over my right shoulder, over here, there is a painting of a church. You can identify that church. I will provide you with 2 additional bonus points. So spend your time reviewing this so that you're ready to go for Friday. All right, this is the end of the video. Have a great rest of your Thursday.